Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We've got something huge to unpack today, the brand new Safer Skies Act interim final rule. If you're invested in public safety, security, or even civil liberties, this is a massive shift in local policing power that you really need to understand. We're talking about authority that used to be strictly locked down by federal agents, now being handed right over to the local sheriff or the city police department down your street. So let's just get right into it.
Picture this. You're at a massive stadium, 80,000 cheering fans, and suddenly an unidentified drone is just hovering right over the crowd. Until now, a local officer on the ground had almost no independent authority to actually stop it. They basically had to stand there and watch, crossing their fingers that it was just some tourists trying to get a cool aerial shot and not something much, much worse. Usually, they'd have to rely on federal task forces just to take action. But the airspace rules have fundamentally changed, and that power is being put directly into local hands.
And look, we have to talk about this because the drone threat, it is escalating fast. We're way past the days of drones just being a neighborhood nuisance. We're talking about routine, highly coordinated contraband drops over prison walls, literally airdropping cell phones and narcotics directly to inmates. We're seeing dangerous incursions over airports, causing massive flight delays, and even federally charged plots involving weaponized payloads. Imagine a regular off-the-shelf drone rigged with a small explosive targeting a local parade. The threat is local, which means the response absolutely needs to be local too. So to help make sense of this massive 50-question bureaucratic document, we've broken this explainer down into 6 logical parts. The rogue drone problem, the Safer Skies Act itself, detection versus mitigation, authorized tech, rules of engagement, and, finally, accountability and privacy. All right, Section 1, the rogue drone problem. Let's establish exactly why this federal rule was so urgently needed in the first place.
The core problem here isn't a hobbyist making an innocent mistake. We're dealing with malicious, calculated actions. When a drone is hovering precariously close to the power lines of a critical electrical grid or buzzing a crowded outdoor concert, local agencies simply don't have the time to sit around and wait for the feds to show up. A disruption like that can cascade into a life-threatening crisis in literally minutes. Law enforcement on the ground needs immediate localized countermeasures to protect their communities right then and there.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Safer Skies Act. This is the legal framework that's completely changing the game. So, the origin of this new power is a joint initiative issued directly by the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. It essentially allows state, local, tribal, and territorial agencies to opt into a powerful new program. Once an agency is accredited, they can act in their own jurisdictions on their own authority. No more waiting for a federal sponsor or specialized team to arrive on the scene. It entirely decentralizes the power to protect the airspace. But, and this is a big but, it's not a blank check. The statute specifically names exactly 4 interests you are legally allowed to protect. You can deploy these powers to protect people, facilities, and assets, large-scale public gathering venues, critical infrastructure, and correctional facilities. That is the boundary. If a drone threat targets one of those 4 areas, the new rules apply. You definitely can't just use this tech to swat down a neighbor's drone because it's annoying you. Moving on to Section 3, detection versus mitigation. Let's look at the operational side and explore the 2 very different tiers of authority an agency can pursue. The government has split this up clearly. First, you have detection and warning. This allows an agency to find, track, identify, and even seize a drone once it lands, but without interfering with it while it's in flight. And you can get certified for this through a pretty simple 90-minute online module. It's basically the length of your standard corporate HR training. Mitigation, on the other hand, is a completely different beast. That tier allows you to disrupt, take control of, or literally destroy a threatening drone. And because mitigation involves taking an actual aircraft out of the sky, whether that's a kinetic physical takedown or a complex cyber disruption, the training is incredibly intense. To even execute a mitigation command, operators have to complete a grueling 2-week hands-on residency at the FBI's National Counter-UAS Training Center in Alabama. You absolutely cannot do this online. Congress made this national schoolhouse the sole certifying authority for a very good reason. All right, Section 4, authorized tech and systems. Let's talk about the specific tools you are legally allowed to use out in the field. Here's the deal. You can't just go online, buy a random signal jammer, and start blasting the sky. Agencies are heavily restricted to specific federal lists, the Authorized Technologies List and the Authorized Systems List. These govern advanced actions like radio frequency detection, jamming, and cyber takeovers. Why? Because an untested, off-the-shelf jammer could accidentally take out local hospital communications or interfere with commercial airplane frequencies. It is worth noting, though, that traditional cameras, radars, and acoustic sensors are totally unaffected by this rule. Now, if you're thinking, great, another unfunded federal mandate crushing local budgets, well, not quite. The FEMA Counter UAS grant program is putting a massive $500 million on the table across fiscal years 2026 and 2027, $500 million. This is huge because it means local taxpayers aren't footing the entire bill. This grant money is specifically there to help agencies buy this highly specialized tech and properly train their people without bankrupting their city. Let's get into Section 5, Rules of Engagement. Exactly when is an officer legally permitted to push the button and neutralize a drone? It all comes down to one phrase: a credible threat. This isn't just a hunch or a bad feeling. It relies on an objective, reasonable officer standard. An officer has to be able to clearly document that a drone poses an articulable risk based on the totality of circumstances at that exact moment. And crucially, this is big. This can never be based on someone exercising their First Amendment rights. You absolutely cannot shoot down a drone just because it belongs to a journalist covering a police response or an activist filming a protest. And the whole operation is strictly tracked. You don't just act and forget about it. Before you even deploy, you submit an operations plan through a federal portal to coordinate with the FBI, DHS, and FAA. Then, if a credible threat arises, you execute your mitigation. And after that, the clock starts ticking. You are legally required to file a detailed post-operation report to the DOJ and DHS within 48 hours. Miss that deadline, and you're answering directly to the federal government. Finally, Section 6, Accountability and Privacy. How do we balance this massive new law enforcement superpower with everyday civil liberties? Well, the guardrails are incredibly explicit. This authority exists exclusively to stop drone threats. You can never, ever use it against a manned aircraft with a pilot or passengers. And let me be clear, this is not a general investigative tool. You can't use it to bypass wiretap laws or passively sweep up neighborhood data. Plus, any data intercepted during an operation has to be minimized and completely deleted within 180 days, unless there's a highly specific, federally documented exception. And trust me, the federal government is not messing around with non-compliance. Agencies that knowingly act without the required coordination, skip their paperwork, or go rogue with unauthorized equipment face intense civil fines of up to $100,000 per violation. On top of that, they face the immediate suspension of their certification, basically grounding their entire counter-drone program overnight. You have to play strictly by the rules. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to keep this in mind. This is an interim final rule. The DOJ and DHS are actively asking for public input right now on things like privacy calibration and how long these certifications should even last. With the comment period ending on September 4th, 2026, how might your voice and the upcoming public comments alter the final boundaries of this massive shift in local policing power?